I know I've said this before on the podcast as well, but me paying attention to my fitness and my health has improved every other aspect of my life. And I don't think I would be making this trip to Los Angeles had I not gone through this process of getting into shape. I can't imagine doing this with how I was 5, 6 years ago. So yeah, I owe a lot to you, and I owe a lot to getting into shape and being consistent. And this is why I prioritize it so much every single day. It's like not so much like I'm trying to get to like this elite level of strength or anything like that. It's because I know how much it benefits every other aspect of my life.
Welcome to the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Podcast with Lee Hayward and Jeff Samataro. Since 1997, Lee Hayward's Total Fitness Bodybuilding has been online helping guys to build muscle, lose fat, and become the best version of themselves. The goal of this podcast is to provide you with real-world practical fitness and nutrition advice to look your best, improve your health, and feel confident in your own skin, so you can live life to the fullest without having your body holding you back from doing the things you want to do. So if you're ready to get started, let's jump into the show.
Welcome, everyone. Lee Hayward here, joined with Jeff Samataro, and we are on episode number 6 of the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Podcast. We're making progress here. I'm going to call us official podcasters now at this stage of the game.
I think we've earned it. That's our official title.
The 6th episode, we're going to own the title. We are podcasters now. We're making this work.
That's right.
And this past weekend has been a whirlwind for myself. I just want to kind of share a couple quick little highlights. I jumped in last minute and did a gravel bike race this past weekend. Last minute decision, spur of the moment, but it went way better than I expected. I ended up placing 6th place out of 60 riders, had a blast, and that was so much fun. And I posted some videos. I'll share some video footage on YouTube. Like I took my GoPro and got some highlights from the race, but that was a lot of fun and way harder than I had ever expected. Right. I've done road races before, like cycling road races, but this was off-road. Right. So it's mud, lots and lots of mud.
Wow.
Fun. It was fun. And I know, like you mentioned there on one of our previous episodes, that you're currently training for a half marathon, is it?
Yeah, so we have ambitions to run the half marathon. It's in April of 2025. And I got to find a balance right now because I've been so in the mindset of strength training now for so long and training intensely too, that I've found that on my off days, which I would typically go and do like a bike ride, which is like low impact and something I can do on my off days. Now I've been trying to go run, and it's like I'm starting to realize it's something's going to need to give. I'm going to need to maybe calm down with the strength training and then focus more on running for a little while, because my wife and I, we went to the calisthenics park on Monday and we were doing lunges and all these different lunge variations. And I woke up Tuesday and my legs were just cooked and we were supposed to go running. And I'm like, there's no way that I can barely get out of bed, let alone go run a 5K right now. So I ended up doing a bike ride instead just to do something, but I'm going to need to cool it in one area if I'm going to focus on doing this road or doing this race here, this half marathon.
That's something we can actually dive into, talking about how to manage your exercise volume for strength training and performance and different activities. Because I know a lot of our listeners are involved with different sports and activities. And if you're not, I would encourage you to get involved with some sports or activities, because a lot of people get involved with fitness for the surface level. Like, okay, I want to lose weight or I want to look better. And there's nothing wrong with those goals. I mean, use whatever motivation you can to get the ball rolling. But once you are taking action, it's nice to have something bigger than just, I want to lose weight, or I want to lower my blood pressure, or I want to lower my cholesterol, or whatever. Like, it's nice to have something outside of that, some sort of sport or ambition or an external drive to get that competitive fire going, whether it is a race or a bodybuilding competition or a physique competition or some sort of other sporting events, whether you're into recreational sports, basketball, hockey, whatever.
Yeah.
you use your physical abilities that you're building in the gym and use it towards something, and then that'll help to fuel your motivation to push yourself, be more consistent with the workouts and all that.
Yeah, it keeps it fun.
Yes.
That becomes a daily grind after a while. So if you have something that keeps it fun for you, that's going to keep you coming back day in and day out.
It
Hmm.
absolutely, it can get a bit boring and monotonous, and I think that's part of the reason why sometimes people fall off the wagon, especially if your goal is just to lose weight. Because let's say you achieve your weight loss goals, or you get to a point where it's not uncomfortable. Like maybe you didn't hit your ultimate physique yet, but you're at the point where it's not that bad. It's okay. And once it gets to the point where the pressure is released, people let themselves slide. You know,
Yeah. Hmm.
they slide back into their old habits. Whereas if you can keep some positive pressure on yourself in the form of competition, wanting to do better in whatever chosen sport or activity it is, that is very powerful. And I found from just working with people that those who are involved with some sort of sports or have a competition side to things make way better progress than those who are just doing it to lose weight and look better and feel better. You know, those very generic vanilla reasons that most people have for getting into fitness. Like I always like to ask what are your goals when I'm talking to people about fitness and we get into a good conversation. What are your goals? What are you doing this for? Why is that important? And a lot of times they're just given the surface level. Oh, I want to look better. I want to be healthier. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Look better,
Mm.
live a longer life. But like that's not going to drive you to get out of bed in the morning with enthusiasm and gusto and say, "Oh, I want to live a longer life."
Right. Yeah. And
Or
it'll change too over the years as well. Like what my first goals were when I first started, very different now than what I'm striving for today. So
Mhm.
it'll grow and change over time. So whatever gets you started, but don't be afraid to reframe as you go.
Yeah, it's going to evolve. Absolutely, it's certainly going to evolve. So there's nothing wrong with those initial goals and drives, but realize it's going to expand. And that's one of the things I'd like to talk on today is how can we maximize our sports performance, maximize muscle building and strength and stamina and endurance and all these things. Just curious, like, have you competed in any sports or activities over the years?
I mean, I played hockey when I was a kid, I guess, for a little while there, but I've never been a very competitive person myself. And I've always kind of been more of a lone wolf, I guess. Like I do things mostly solo, which is why I've worked out at home for all these years. The things that I like to do in like a community setting are typically like going on bike rides with friends or going for hikes with friends. That's one thing I really love to do. I love going hiking, but it's not nothing like competitive. I think the most competitive thing I did was where I did a Spartan race last November. We did a Spartan race, but even then it was like I'm not like super gung ho trying to beat the guy next to me or whatever. I'm just mostly just there just to move and have some fun. So the only competition I'm in with Lee is myself.
I
Hmm.
can appreciate that. And that's a good competition to be in because regardless of what level you're at, there's always going to be somebody better, right? Like
Hmm.
you can be the hungry person says, "Oh, I want to win, and I don't want to compete unless I have a shot at winning," and that kind of thing. But there's always going to be someone who's better. Like you may win the local level grassroots event that you're doing, but then once you move up to the next level and then the next level, eventually you're going to meet your match, right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
like I was having a conversation with one of the guys who did the gravel race with me this past weekend. He placed second at the event, did really well. I mean, like he's been involved with cycling in all different sports avenues, like from mountain biking, road racing, track cycling, the whole works, time trialing. He placed second, and he was telling me about an event that he did just last year over in Europe, where there was like well over 1,000 people entered, and he placed
Wow.
somewhere in the 300s, right? So here he is, like at the local level, right at the top, next to the top. He was number two at our local race here. But then you
Mhm.
go somewhere like over in Europe, there's more people. Now he's just mid pack. In my case, when I do these events, like the first event, it just hey, just show up, do your best, see where you place, learn from that, and then try and do better the next time. Try and be better than
Mm.
you were before. mean, that's the way it was when I was competing in bodybuilding. First show that I ever did, I was naive, 17-year-old, right? Didn't know any better. And I thought, oh, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to blow everybody away, right? Meanwhile, I go there and I get my ass kicked. But it was humbling, and I learned so much from the experience. And then I went back the next year, got better. Then the following year,
Mm-hmm.
learned from my mistakes, went back to the drawing board, got better. And I kept doing that year after year after year. And it was just a never ending process of learn from your mistakes and getting better. And I think that's the benefit of sports, is because it gives you that extra drive, that extra motivation that you don't have when it's just, I want to lose weight and look good and be healthy.
Yeah.
Those are pretty vanilla and vague goals. But if you have some sports performance or specific goals, it really helps you to dial in your training, dial in your nutrition, dial in all those habits, the sleep, the rest, the recovery, all this kind of stuff, more so.
Yeah. Well, I want to commend you for going back year in and year out and being willing to get your butt kicked like that. Because a lot of guys, they would just take that initial butt kicking and then just be like, "Oh, this is not for me," and then just never show up again. So the fact that you kept going back says something.
I appreciate that. I understand where you're coming from, and I hear that a lot. But to me, it's, why wouldn't I come back? Like that. That's the way I
Yeah.
look at it. Like, why wouldn't I want to learn from my mistakes and come back and improve and just to keep that momentum going forward? Because I think if you try something and you fail, and then you just say, oh, like if at first just don't succeed, screw it, you're never meant to do it, type of thing. Like that was a waste. Like, you just missed that
Mhm.
opportunity for growth. Whereas I'm of the attitude of, hey, if you don't succeed, learn from your mistakes and come back and do better next time. That's what motivates me. And I actually get motivated by losing because it gives me something. Hey, I want to be better. I want to come back. I want to try and improve.
Mhm.
Very motivating thing for
Yeah.
me. I've kind of reprogrammed my internal wiring. Instead of looking at it as a negative, like, oh, I'm a failure, I screwed
Mhm.
up, like, this is an opportunity for progress. This is an opportunity to
Yeah.
be better.
It's just tough because it's like it's physically uncomfortable to be in those types of scenarios. I know I've been in scenarios before musically where I've been around other musicians who play better than I do, and like it's physically uncomfortable sometimes. Your ego takes a wicked hit, and you're just kind of like looking back and you're looking at yourself in a very analytical perspective that you hadn't looked at yourself before, and you start seeing all the flaws, whereas in other places you all you see is your strengths, because people are telling you all the time like, oh, you're great, oh, you're awesome, oh wow, you're so impressive, and then you get surrounded by somebody who's better than you and you're like, how am like, oh, I'm so awful. How do I get away with with being this bad? So it's physically uncomfortable. Your ego takes a hit, and you have to rebuild yourself from there. So if you find yourself in that situation, you know you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, I've another way I've heard of it is, if you're the big fish in a small pond, you're in the wrong pond. Like, it's better to be
Yeah,
the small fish
perfect.
in the big pond, because that's going to force you to grow and to improve. And
Exactly.
I know that's exactly why you're making this move now that you mentioned to Los Angeles, to improve your music career, right? Like, we talked about that in previous episodes, how you're in the process now of literally moving because you're in that situation where you are the big fish in a small pond, so to speak, and you want to get outside that so you can grow and improve. So again, there's a lot of parallels with fitness progress and life progress and career progress in general. There's a lot of parallels to it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I know I've said this before on the podcast as well, but me paying attention and to my fitness and my health has improved every other aspect of my life. And I don't think I would be making this trip to Los Angeles had I not gone through this process of getting into shape. I can't imagine doing this with how I was 5, 6 years ago. So yeah, I owe a lot to you, and I owe a lot to getting into shape and being consistent. And this is why I prioritize it so much every single day. It's like not so much like I'm trying to get to like this elite level of strength or anything like that. It's because I know how much it benefits every other aspect of my life.
To go along with that, just imagine doing what you're doing, embarking on this life change, moving across the country, putting yourself in this uncomfortable situation to try and better yourself. But imagine doing that at 250 pounds overweight and not healthy. Like,
Right.
imagine your confidence, like, versus being lean and fit and knowing, okay, I'm at least I'm presenting the best version of yourself when you're going there.
Great. I couldn't get out of my own way when I weighed 260 pounds, but now it's like everything is expedited. I'm moving at a lot quicker pace. Once we made the decision, like, yeah, we're doing it. Now I wake up every day and it's like, all right, get my workout in, and then what can I do today to help move us closer to getting out there, to setting ourselves up to succeed out there. That kind of productivity, I really think that that's a direct result of being consistent with my fitness and working out.
That goes along with something that my coach told me and keeps telling me over and over again is don't overthink things. Like jump in and be willing to take imperfect action. Figure it out as you go. What do they call it? Paralysis by analysis. Worrying about like the worst case scenario. What could go wrong? What if I screw up? What if it doesn't go the way I planned? Like, just don't overthink it. Just jump in. Figure it out as you go. Sure, you're going to make mistakes and you are going to probably screw up, and it's going to be like afterwards you say, oh, I wish I had done it this way or I've done it that way, but at least you got the momentum moving, and now you can learn from those mistakes and course correct as you're going versus staying stuck in paralysis and over analyzing and never actually doing anything.
Yeah, like you can imagine everything that I have to get done leading up to this move 3,000 miles away from where I'm currently living. You just wake up every single day and it's all jumbled up in my head of like all these things that I have to do. Plus I'm still working here and I have to worry about all that stuff as well. But it's like, you just look at the list and you're like, okay, I'm just going to do something. I'm just going to start with just something. And I'm not going to try to figure out like, oh, I do this and then I do this and then I do that. Because then it's too big. The mountain's too big. I know I got to do these three things. I'm going to start with the first thing and I'm just going to start here. And I'm just going to get that done. And then I'm going to move on to the second thing. And then, right. So that way it's not all overwhelming. And I don't just sit there paralyzed by the laundry list of things that I have to do.
Big takeaway. I know this is a lot easier said than done, but just act on that. Just jump in. Be willing to take imperfect action. Like it's good enough. That's one of the things I always preach within our whole coaching program in our community is being good enough and good enough consistently. Like, don't worry. Don't wait till it's perfect. It's never going to be perfect. Just be willing to jump in. Good enough is good enough. It can always get better, but start with good enough. We want to be consistently good versus occasionally great, right? I'd rather show up day in and day out consistently good enough than waiting for those few little golden nugget opportunities where everything is great.
Yeah. Well, how many times have you talked to somebody and they're like, oh, I got to go to the gym and I got to do the hamstring curls and then I got to do the bench press and then I got to do this and then I got to do that. And everything is like, whoa. Why don't you just start by just drinking a glass of water? Drink a glass of water. Start there. Or have one healthy meal. Or go to the gym and just walk in through the door and like go and do some curls or something like that. Something that is really easy that'll make you feel good, and then walk and then go home and then try it again tomorrow. It's like when the mountain is so big and overwhelming, it's like you're never going to get started because the task is too large. So just break it down into these smaller, easy, more manageable steps and something you could do today. And then it'll get better over time. But I think it's just because people just want things immediately.
And I think too, all the information overload, because we're in such a weird situation now where if someone types in something to Google or YouTube or wherever they're searching, how to whatever, like how to lose weight, how to work out, how to get in shape, how to build muscle, how to lose fat, whatever you type in, you're going to be bombarded with so much stuff. And then the further you go down the rabbit hole, the more confused you get. And then, of course, a confused mind just says no. Like you'd be probably better off not even doing that Google search of how to and just go with your own gut instinct and common sense. And this is something I always tell the people that come to me for advice is they're wondering like, oh, what's the best workout should I start with? Just show up to the gym. Like for your first month, I really don't give a shit what you do when you get there. As long as you're consistently. That's right. That's the most important thing. Just show up.
Yeah. If you're 100 pounds overweight, it doesn't matter what the best bicep curl variation is. Just do a bicep curl. It doesn't even matter what it is.
Just do something. Like go there. Just do a circuit on the machines. Walk on the treadmill. Do something. Just show up. Get off your duffus and move. Once people are beyond that, and I know like a lot of the people listening to this are we got people at all phases. We got people who are overthinking it and sitting on their duffus, and then we have people who are taking action and starting their journey. And then, of course, there's some who are more advanced along the lines and are looking to optimize. And
Mm.
it's interesting how it all unfolds. Like it's always a progressive path here. But when it comes to optimizing things, like that's where we can get into detail and look under the hood and start tinkering and tweaking with stuff. Just wanted to go back to what you mentioned earlier with you're training for this half marathon, but you found that you need to balance it out. Like, okay, I can't give 100% to my weight training and 100% to my cardio training and everything else. Like there's a balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you made any adjustments so far, or like where do you feel like you're,
Mm-hmm.
or where do you feel like you're lacking, if you will?
Yeah, so I just have a tendency to just go hard with whatever it is that I'm doing. It's how I've always approached working out. So like I always get to like 1 to 2, 3 reps to failure or something on most sets and everything. Like I want it to feel hard. And my strength training workouts, I do like an upper body, lower body superset, and I'll do that for 3 to 4 rounds of that for 3 sets each. So I'll do that, and then on my off days, I'll typically do a bike ride or something like that, or a walk or a Peloton ride or something like that.
Mhm.
But I found that those are easy to do when your body feels beat up from the previous day's strength training session. Now with running, because running is so physically demanding, you're beating your body up. So if I get done a session, a hard running session, my ankles are sore, my knees, my hips, like you have to plan recovery around those types of sessions. So now it's like, okay, I need recovery from strength training, but I also need recovery from running, whereas before my cardio session was almost doubling as like a cardio session and recovery from my strength training sessions the day before. So
Mhm.
now it's like, all right, yeah, I'm going to need to balance this somehow, like whether it's replacing my strength training sessions with running, and maybe doing like my hard sessions during the week as running, and then using my strength sessions as like, instead of going to like an 8 out of 10 in intensity level, maybe I go down to like a 4 or a 5 with intensity level, because I don't want to lose strength, obviously, and I feel like building
Mhm.
up leg strength is going to help with my endurance running as well. So, but I've found it's like, all right, I can't burn the candle at both ends here. I can't go hard on everything. I need to prioritize. What is it that I want to prioritize? So it's hard because the past 5, 6 years, I've focused so much on strength training, and I love strength training. It's something that I love to do. So it's hard for me to dial down on that and dial up on the cardio, because it's always been the other way.
I can appreciate where you're coming from, and I've had to do similar things with my cycling training in the last few years when I've been getting more serious into that and actually competing in some cycling races. And
Hmm.
it's actually switched gears because my priority in the past as a bodybuilder, it was always weight training is priority, cardio is secondary, and it was high intensity weight training, low intensity cardio. And now sometimes it's actually been reversed where
Hmm.
priority is, especially if I'm getting ready for a race and training for one, priority will be the cardio training, and then the supplementary work will be the strength training.
Hmm.
Reverse psychology approach there. And it's okay to do that depending on what it is that you're trying to focus on. Like you can't chase two rabbits at once. And it's okay to switch your priorities. Especially those who like shun cardio, which there are a lot of fitness gurus out there. Oh, cardio sucks. You don't need to do cardio, right? Just lift weights, lift weights, lift weights. Well, okay, that's great if that's what you want to prioritize, but there's another world of fitness outside of the weight room. So you can change it up, but we still want both. Like in modern years, people have realized the benefits of strength training. Like it's not like the old school thought of, oh, if you work out, you're going to get muscle bound and slow. Like that's been debunked. Well, right, the best athletes in the world all incorporate strength training to some degree, but a lot of times it's to balance and to complement their sports that they're doing. Fill in
I've
the
talked to some people too, and like another concern that they've thrown at me too is like, well, aren't you afraid that you're going to lose muscle if you start focusing on cardio and doing cardio sessions like more intensely? And I'm not. I don't know, Lee. I'd be curious to your take on that as well. But in my gut instinct is that I might look a little flatter maybe, but like I don't think I'm in the long term I'm going to end up losing any type of significant muscle.
Muscle is not as easy to lose as a lot of people make it out to be. Like some people think, oh, if I skip a workout, I'm going to shrink, or if I do a cardio session, I'm going to shrink, or like
Mm,
no, muscle is not as fragile as a lot of people make it out to be. It's very
mhm,
durable. But with that being said, if you start switching gears to focus on more endurance training and less on the strength training, you will see a slight change. Like your peak strength will go down a bit. Your muscle fullness may go down a bit. I mean, it's not like you're going to deflate or lose it all. I mean, you'll still look very similar on the surface, but you'll notice, okay, like your peak power, your 1 rep max bench, for example, is not going to be the same, or your peak
mm,
power output in the gym is not going to be the same. But vice versa, your stamina, your endurance, what it is that you are prioritizing, that will go up by leaps and bounds. You'll see great
mm,
progress. It is a little bit of a trade-off there, but it's what do you want to focus on? This is something that once you've achieved your short-term goal with cardio, if you want to go back and prioritize strength training for a while, then when you go back to that and start prioritizing it, your body will respond all over again, almost like a beginner, because it's unique muscle stimulation all over again sometimes.
mm,
So it's not a bad thing. Like I've bounced back and forth between it. For example, like over this past winter, I prioritized more strength training and less cardio training. And I really made some good gains in the gym, see my strength and bounce back. Now that summer,
mhm,
I want to do the opposite. I want to prioritize, the cycling training and spend less time in the weight room. Now, for me, maybe 2 weight training workouts a week, and then the rest of my workouts are going to be cycling workouts. Whereas over
mhm.
there was probably the opposite. Only a couple good cardio sessions a week, and then prioritizing the weight training. And a lot of people, if they want to do multiple types of activities, weight training and cardio, or weight training and sports, whatever. I want you to visualize, like, let's think of your body as if you have 100 units of recovery. It's not like you have 100 units for in the gym weight training, and 100 units for doing cardio, and 100 units for playing hockey. You have 100 units total. How do you divvy
Mhm.
those 100 units between your different sports? And whatever is the most priority, that should get the bulk of them. And then the rest kind of use it as a supplementary form of exercise.
Now, what about diet? What's your take on diet if I was going to switch from prioritizing strength training to doing cardio and running more? Would the diet change that much? Like, would I focus more on eating more carbs?
It depends on the type of distances and durations you're doing, but that's a great question for sure. Because one thing that you want to focus on with nutrition in general, like a lot of people come to the fitness space with the goal of losing weight. So they're thinking of dieting, restriction, cutting carbs, cutting calories, training in a deficit, that type of mindset. And the idea of now training at maintenance calories or even training with surplus calories is kind of like a foreign concept for a lot of people. Unless
Mhm,
you're in the bodybuilding world and you're doing like the off-season bulking, most people are not used to actually purposely training in a well-fed state, a well-nourished state. They're always used to training in a depleted state. And it's crazy. Like I've talked to a lot of people, they think, well, what's the point of doing cardio if I'm well fed? Like I'm just trying to burn fat. Like I should be doing fasted cardio, or I should be in a massive calorie deficit, or I should have like zero carbs and try to burn body fat. Yes, from a fat loss point of view, that can work, but from an energy and performance point of view, that sucks.
mhm.
Like,
Yep.
carbs are your high octane fuel. A well nourished body, that is going to fuel and energize you. Whereas if you're trying to train in a depleted state, like your performance, you're literally running on empty.
Mhm. Yeah.
And this has been the game changer. Like anybody who's familiar with endurance training, like if you start studying whether it's cyclists or runners or triathletes or any endurance related athlete, this is where next level performance is really taken over, and fueling the workouts and nourishing your body. This is where we're seeing the biggest strides now, especially when you're actually training, especially for long duration, like in the case of a marathon, for example, or a triathlon or a long distance cycling race. People are fueling before and during the actual event itself. And prioritizing that to the point now where it's common for a lot of elite athletes to be consuming like 100 grams of carbs per hour of exercise.
Wow.
So let's just say you're doing a marathon, like, I don't know, you're doing a 3-hour marathon. People doing 300 grams of carbs during that marathon race.
During the marathon race?
While they're racing, like during the event itself, right? They would be consuming that, upwards of that. Now, the elite level guys will.
How would you get 300 grams of carbs in during a race? I'm just imagining somebody running with a bowl of oatmeal. Just
No. It would be usually, well, one, when I go for bike rides, I always mix up water bottles, but I put carbohydrate powder and amino acids in my water bottle. So I'll probably put 50 grams of carb powder in a water bottle, plus I'll put in, say, 5 grams of amino acids, and I'll also put in some sodium, basically salt for electrolyte. So I'll get 50 grams of carbs in a bottle. Right?
Okay.
Other things you can do too. A lot of, like, you get these gels. I actually have some over here. I'll just show you what I'm talking about.
Oh, are those like the Gatorade gels?
Well, these ones are SIS Sports and Science gels, but these,
Oh, okay.
you can put them in your pockets or whatever. You just rip it open, and it's basically liquid carbs, right? It's just pure carbohydrates.
Yeah.
Right here. But it's very easy to absorb and very easy to digest, and you can just,
how's it taste?
This one's actually very mild. There's this one's like tropical fruit flavor, but it's a very mild one. Some of them are sickly sweet. Some of them are thicker than others. This one, SIS, not sponsored by them or whatever, but that's a really good one. It's mild tasting. It's very thin and easy to drink and swallow. Like, you could consume that without water. Like, it's not a dry paste or something, you know what I mean? Like, choke it down. It actually goes down really easy. So, like, you could be running or cycling or whatever, swig that down and just keep going. And it's very rapidly absorbing carbohydrates. This is where those simple carbs are advantageous. Like, you don't want fibrous carbs or slow digesting carbs. You want fast absorbing carbs when you're running or cycling or in the moment of actual exercise, because you want it to get into your bloodstream as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's interesting.
Right. So it's the complete opposite of the way we've been taught about carbohydrates from a fat loss, nourishing point of view. Like, oh, you want complex carbs and the high fiber carbs and the slow release carbs. Like, when you're exercising, that goes out the window. You want the fat. And some people just go for the straight up sugar too. Like, hey, they're drinking Coca-Cola, they're eating candy bars. Like, some people, if you train your gut to do it, you can tolerate that stuff. That's another point too. Like, you literally have to start small and train your stomach, eat and exercise at the same time, because most people would feel very nauseous if they tried to jump into this too much too soon. Like, if you're not used to eating anything while you're exercising, and then all of a sudden you just say, oh, well, Lee said 100 grams of carbs per hour, and then you start doing that, you'll probably like puke.
Yep. I remember when my dad was running the Boston Marathon, we would get there the day before. We would go to the convention center, and they would have these like giant pasta dinners. And that was part of the fee that you would pay to run the race. You get a pasta dinner included. And I remember it was kind of funny, the three of us, because I have two brothers and my mom too. So we would, the 5 of us together, we would all be in the convention center, all eating pasta. It was like free dinner for the whole family. Yeah, but my dad, he'd eat this massive bowl of pasta. He'd be like, I've never seen him eat that much ever. And he's like, yeah, I need it because tomorrow I'm going to be running for 3 hours.
But yeah, I mean, that you want to carb up. So you want to make sure that your glycogen stores are topped up before you go into the event, right? Like, going in there with depleted glycogen stores is like, going into a boxing match with one arm tied behind your back. Like, you don't want to do that. You want to make sure glycogen is topped up. So obviously carbing up beforehand, which, like you mentioned, pasta dinner. And that's something that you can experiment with in training. Like, what foods sit well with you and your stomach, and what do you enjoy and what do you tolerate? You can practice this, because the worst thing to do is go to an event, whether it's, a marathon or a cycling event or whatever, and then try something new last minute, because you don't know what your body's going to respond to. Right. So you want to practice all this stuff in advance. And especially when it comes to the intra-workout nutrition, starting off small. So an easy way to do this is like you're normally drinking water anyway. Just start mixing up some carbohydrate powder in with your water bottles. Maybe start off 20 grams of carb powder and like a scoop of amino acids. I go with the essential amino acids, the EAAs, and just start with that, and then gradually increase it a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely tell the difference the day that I'm going to go running if I have a bowl of oatmeal in the morning, as opposed to just going and doing it fasted. Like it's night and day, the difference between my energy levels and my performance. When I have something like that, I can go out there and I can run 3.5 to 5 miles, no problem. If I go out depleted, it's like by mile 2, I'm like, oh my God, I just want this to end.
That's the way the body works. I mean, because you're running on empty. And if you do a prolonged event, like you're getting into multiple hours, you can literally deplete your body of glycogen, and that's what's known as bonking. So you might be running fine, like, okay, things are going great, and then it's just like you hit the wall. Like you literally run out of glycogen. That's stored carbohydrate in the muscles and in the liver. Once you run out of glycogen, your performance just drops off a cliff, because now your body has to start breaking down body fat for energy, and that is a slow burning fuel source. Okay, you're going from running pace to basically walking pace. That's the difference. Like it just drops off the cliff. There's no intensity, because carbohydrates, glucose, that's your high octane fuel. That's what you need, high intensity. If you run on zero carbs or low carbs or in a depleted state, you're just shooting yourself in the foot for performance, right? It's like trying to run a high performance sports car on watered down gas. Like it ain't going to get the maximum performance, no matter right, how hard you drive it or whatever, or how good a driver you think you are. If you got watered down gas in the tank, it ain't running. And the thing that makes this tricky too is you want to prioritize your nutrition around those events and around your training. But then in your non-training days, and when you're not burning those calories, you got to learn how to scale it back, because this is a thing where people let it get out of hand and think, well, I'm doing a lot of exercise. I'm a runner. I'm a cyclist. I'm a triathlete. I can eat whatever I want. And then they end up overeating even when they don't need it and piling on extra body fat. You go to any local race, local marathon, local whatever, you'll see a lot of overweight endurance athletes because they use that as their excuse. I'm burning so many calories, I can eat whatever I want.
Yeah.
Necessarily.
Well, we're all guilty of getting done a big workout and being like, I earned this, and then go house a bunch of food.
Yeah. like our analogy of dialing it up and dialing it back, like the thermostat, you got to learn to do that with your nutrition as well. When I need it, I'm going to dial it up. I'm going to put more fuel in the tank when I need it. But then when I don't, I'm going to turn it back, dial it back and just eat what I need based on my activity level. And that requires a bit of awareness, self-discipline.
Sure. Yeah, totally. And making sure you're getting enough sleep too. That's another thing that I've been trying to get better about as well, is getting to bed at a reasonable hour, knowing that I'm going to try to train hard the next day.
That's good motivation for improving your sleep habits. Let's face it, like a lot of people, watching TV or scrolling on their phone, and let's say you're watching Netflix and one more show, right? And next thing you know, it's after midnight, like, oh shit, I got to get up in the morning.
Yeah. And that's another thing. That's just as, I think it's just as powerful as diet is how much sleep you get the night before. I know I've waken up after having awful night's sleep and going to the gym and just dragging ass. And it's just not happening. And no matter how much I'm trying to will it to happen, it's just not happening. But then when you have a good 6 to 8 hours of sleep, you wake up the next day, feel nice and refreshed, have a nice high carb breakfast, head to the gym, feel nice and awake, maybe have a little bit of caffeine before you go in. And it's like, you could tell before you even walk in the door, you're like, this is going to be a great session.
Absolutely. I've heard it said that good sleep is like a performance enhancing drug. I mean, that's how powerful it can be, like versus a good night's sleep versus a poor night's sleep. It's literally like that. And I will adjust my training intensity accordingly. Like if I had a poor night's sleep, whether it was purposely or unintentionally or whatever, it doesn't matter. If it was a poor night's sleep, I'm going to scale back the volume and the intensity of my workouts the next day. I'm not going to try and push it hard if I didn't sleep well the night before. So that's
No.
another thing, being willing to give yourself permission to deviate from your plan based on how you're feeling. Because let's
Yeah.
just say it's okay, you're scheduled to do some high intensity interval work or high intensity training sessions, and you got like 4 hours sleep the night before, and it was bleh. Maybe today is just go for a walk. Like it's just something
Yeah.
easy, literally just that. And then save that high intensity day for maybe a day or two down the road once you've had a good night's sleep and you feel well rested and recovered.
You'd be way more productive that way. Take the one day to go for a walk and get a little bit of extra recovery, then you go into the next session and now you're gonna be at your peak strength as opposed to going in, beating yourself up, and now you gotta recover from that session and you probably didn't hit the numbers that you wanted to hit anyway. So you're not making any type of strength gains or any type of endurance gains when you're running on depleted sleep.
I know a lot of people sometimes ask me, like, oh, how do you structure your workouts? Like, how do you alternate the high intensity and the low intensity and all that? My answer is literally I go by how my body feels. If I'm
Yeah.
feeling strong and energetic, then I'm going to push it. If I'm
Mhm.
feeling tired and drained, I'm going to do an easy workout. With that being said, there are some times, depending on what someone's training for, where you want to purposely train yourself in an overtrained state to kind of condition your body for that. That's like when you're getting into ultra endurance events. That's another topic. But for the average person, like 80% of the time for most people, just listen to your body. If you're feeling strong, push it. If you're not,
Mhm.
don't. But still do something. Those days when I'm dragging my heels and I don't feel strong, I'm still going to do something. I'm going to go for a walk, do some stretching, do some mobility work, just do some gentle exercise, but keep greasing the groove, as they say. Keep the some movement in there, and then that'll actually help with the recovery the next day.
Mhm. 100%.
But learn to dial it up and dial it back as needed. I know you mentioned earlier, like you always try to push yourself hard, like this whole mindset, go hard or go home, right? No pain, no gain, all that. It sounds good on a social media meme or something like that, or a t-shirt logo, but that's not the way training really works. You have to
Mm.
do those easy workouts. And this is something I've really learned with coaching people in the gym. One of my coaching students that I'm working with in person now, he just started a few months ago, but he's been making strength gains exponentially, like better than average strength gains. And I've been blown away with it. But the key thing that I've been focusing on with this guy is holding back the reins, like purposely stopping while there's still some left in the tank. So like sometimes he'll be going through his workouts and like he said, "Oh, I want to go heavier." I say, "No, we're going to stop today. You've hit a personal best. We're going to leave you wanting more. Leave the gym today knowing that you could have done more, and then come back the next day and we are going to do more." Always have that reserve buffer versus draining the tank dry every single workout. Because sure, you'll probably get a few good workouts doing it that way, but then eventually you're going to start dipping into the overtraining and the burnout and starting to dread those workouts when you're running yourself to the limit every time. Keep it below red line, right? Like keep it in
Mhm.
that sweet spot there where you can keep coming back and keep feeling strong and looking forward to the next workout and hungry to come back for the next workout versus dreading
Yeah.
the next workout.
Oh, I've certainly run into that problem myself over the years of overtraining and then having to take deload weeks and time off and flirting with injuries and stuff.
Mhm.
Thankfully, and I'm knocking on wood here, I have never had any type of serious injury other than some aches and pains that go away over a short amount of time. But yeah, no, I've been guilty of going real hard and just for too much, too long, for too often, and then have to scale it back because my body forces me to scale it back instead of me making that decision on my own.
Yeah, it's better for you to be in control of what you're doing, not being dictated by what you can or can't do by your body. Because okay, I'm injured, so now I'm forced to take a deload.
Yeah, I like the intensity of it. Like it just I like the strain, and I like getting to those last 2 reps where it's really really tough. Like just mentally it's hard to stop when you know that you have more.
This is something is kind of takes a bit of mental reprogramming to realize that those low intensity days are not wasted workouts. They're
Mm.
actually building your base for future workouts. And we can look at fitness like a pyramid. Like you need the big base of those low intensity workouts and lots of them to build a big solid base, a big solid foundation. And that gives you the ability to build up that peak higher for those high intensity workouts.
Mhm.
And this is kind of like a new trend we're seeing a lot in the sports world, especially in the endurance sports world. Like this is something that I've been studying a lot more of in the last several years, where the idea of polarized training is becoming very popular. And what that means is like 80% of the time it's lower intensity training, sub-maximal effort. And then 20% is when you push it hard. 20% high, 80% sub-maximal. And that is a good ratio to go by. So like, for example, like if you're doing endurance training, you're probably only really doing 1 or 2 high intensity sessions a week. The rest of them are those low intensity base building sessions, getting in the miles, right? Laying that foundation. And that foundation is not wasted. It's like you're thinking, oh, this was an easy workout, so it wasn't productive. No, that's building your base level of fitness so that when you do push it, you can push the peak that much higher.
I got to start trying to restructure my running and my workouts in that type of fashion, because I like that idea of, if I can run 5 miles 4 days out of the week, I'm going to go and I'm going to run 2.5, or I'm going to run 2 miles, and then one day, 2 days out of the week, I'm going to try to push it and run past my PR, as opposed to every time hitting the track trying to beat the PR.
Another one, like for this, that really makes a big difference is just monitoring your intensity. So it's still doing the volume, but just doing it at a lower intensity. So this is where,
Mm.
in the case of running, especially, monitoring your heart rate is so powerful. Keeping your heart rate under a certain threshold so that you are in that, what they refer to as zone 2. Like you can go look up the different models. Like it depends on what you're using, because like in cycling, sometimes we have 7 zones that they use based on power. Heart rate, there's typically 5 zones. Then if you're going by like perceived exertion, they usually have 3 zones. But zone 2 is where the most of the base volume building happens. And this is, you're working hard, but it's not intense. It's the, you can keep this going for hours intensity. To put it in perspective, it's the intensity that you could do, but still carry on a conversation. Granted, it's going to be a bit of a labored conversation, like, yeah, how you doing today? Okay, yeah,
Hmm.
good. Like people who are hearing the conversation will know you're exercising. You can hear your breathing elevated, but you can still carry on the conversation.
Yeah. So what is that, like 130 to 150?
Heart rate is, it varies from person to person. Like some people have higher natural heart rates than others. Like first off, the younger you are, the higher your heart rate's going to be. The older you are, the lower it's going to be. But also based on your fitness, you can't really throw out generic numbers for everybody because it's going to vary. For me, like if I'm doing a zone 2 session, I'm keeping my heart rate around 120. I don't want to be going over that. If I'm starting to push into the 130s, 140s or whatever, then okay, I'm getting into more tempo, more higher intensity training there, right? That's going to vary from person to person depending on your heart rate and of course your fitness level. Another way to look at it, you should be able to do it while breathing through your nose. Like if you could run without breathing through your mouth, like could you actually get enough air in through your nose? That's another way to kind of gauge it. It should be challenging, but not hard. You know what I mean? Like it's,
Yeah.
you're working, but it's not hard. Like again, an easy jog, brisk walk is kind of in that zone 2. A stroll on the beach, that's zone 1. It means you're moving, but there's no effort. Like you could easily carry on a conversation. There's no strain on the body whatsoever. That zone 1 is just gentle movement. Zone 2 is movement with a purpose, but you can keep it up for a long time. Zone
Hmm.
3 is okay. Now you're starting to push it into tempo where you're breathing heavy. You can't carry on a conversation, all the way up to max effort sprint work. Like, your max effort sprint for 30 seconds would be like at your peak top zone. That's
Hmm.
anaerobic. That's without oxygen at that point. But that's where you want to be. You want to build that base, right? That zone 2 stuff. So if you wanted to get in the mileage, just do the longer mileage at a lower intensity.
No, I like that, and I really like the method of tracking your breathing and
Hmm.
breathing in through your nose as opposed to your mouth. Because yeah, I have found that, like, I consciously making an effort to breathe in through my nose while I'm running, but when I start getting towards the end there and I start feeling really gassed, I'm huffing out through my mouth the whole time.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that method of tracking it. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. I mean, that's just a way to gauge your intensity. Like if you can't get enough air in through your nose, then you're beyond the zone 2 effort.
Yeah. I keep a heart rate tracker on me and I do pay attention to it. I think the most I ever got up to was like 165, 170, somewhere around there. But yeah, I'll definitely, I'm going to use that. I'm actually going to use that today. My wife and I are going to go for a run after this.
Another thing that you can do as well, like depending on the terrain, like you can maybe run the flats and walk up the hills. Like, I don't know, do you live in a hilly area?
We've been doing it on a track to
Okay.
get started. Yeah, we got a track that's like 2 minutes away from our house, so we just go there and go running. But I know that eventually I'm gonna have to get on the street.
hmm But that's another way to manage your intensities, because if running uphill, like you're going to be beyond zone two, you're going to be into the more high intensity threshold
Yeah.
zone. So
Hmm.
walk the hill and then run the flats. But getting in just the time, the consistency, and the volume at a lower intensity. The key to doing a marathon, like nobody starts off sprinting from the start. If they do, they're going to get dropped pretty quick. And you have to pace yourself right from the start. So knowing this, that zone two pace, that's your marathon pace. So get comfortable knowing what that feels like so that you can sustain that throughout it. Dial it up or dial it down depending on the duration of the event. And in between this, like you should be trying to do some other events too, like maybe, hey, do a 5K race or something like that, just as training and practice. Check out some local events, whatever you have available. Like a lot of places have 5K, 10K runs or something like that. Just sign up for them. Just do it for the fun and the challenge, and use it as part of your training.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, now it's the summertime here, and I know there are a lot of opportunities to do that. So yeah, no, I am gonna seek some of that out. And then in terms of like strength training, what do you think? Like, do strength training, like if I'm doing it 3 days a week now at high intensity, do it like what, 2 days a week at like a medium to low intensity?
You could probably still do a couple days a week, relatively high intensity, but adjust the workouts based on how your body is feeling. Like if your legs are really beat up, then okay, you're not going to be doing crazy heavy squat workouts or something like that, right?
Right.
But the thing I find with the strength training, it's good for balancing out the weak links in the chain, because if you're doing a lot of repetitive movement endurance training, whether that's running or cycling or whatever, there's a lot of things getting neglected, especially like the upper back, your core. That's what I prioritize my strength training workouts with. I
Mm-hmm.
the weak links,
Gotcha.
upper back, core work, things like that. I really want to prioritize. Even some stability and mobility work, a lot of flexibility training as well,
Yeah.
stretching. That's the key to complement what it is that you're doing with your cardio training.
No, that's great. I appreciate all that information, Lee. I'm definitely going to use that. And I'm
Yeah,
sure our listeners, there's some listeners out there who are absolutely going to love this information as well.
I hope so. Yeah, and this is a common thing. Like a lot of people want to incorporate different forms of exercise into their routine, not just going to the gym. That can get a
Hmm.
bit mundane after a while. Right?
Oh yeah, totally.
And
I've changed it up so many times over the years. Like doing like the standard gym workout for me now is kind of boring. So I mean, I'd much rather go work out outside, bring my Olympic rings with me, get some fresh air, find something motivating. Going to like a commercial gym and punching the card and going and lifting weights in front of a mirror, to me that just sounds so boring. I don't want I don't want to do it.
I hear you. I mean, I still do it, and I do enjoy it, but it's not my preferred exercise. Like
Yeah.
I would much rather get outside and enjoy the fresh air and nature and the adventure of the great
Hmm.
outdoors. That's more fun for me. But I know I still need to do that base building work in the gym, at least to prevent injury and mobility and stuff like that. Because if you talk to anybody who's a serious runner or cyclist or whatever, they're probably going to have the injuries, especially runners. Running is harder on the body than cycling because of the impact.
Yeah.
The gym work will help to correct the weak links in the chain, so to speak.
Yeah, totally. And I'm trying to manage that as well. Make sure that I'm getting recovery in, that I'm stretching, I'm doing mobility work too on the side. It's sometimes it feels like a full-time job, Lee.
The cool thing about it, it doesn't have to be all done in a single session or in the same day, right? You can break it up. Sometimes
Well,
do like stretching, for example, like at home. Like maybe if we're watching television, I'll just throw a yoga mat on the floor and I'll watch a show with my wife, but I'm on the floor stretching while we're
oh
watching.
yeah. I do that every single night. Every single night we're watching TV before we go to bed at night. I have my yoga strap and I'm always doing hamstring stretches
Mhm.
because for me that's a chronically tight area for me is my back line. Yeah, so I'm always doing that. I get so jealous. My wife, she can touch she can go flat palms to the floor, like bent, like hinging, and
Yeah.
I can't do that. I can get my knuckles to the floor. I can't
Okay,
get my palms.
pretty good. Yeah.
It's all right, but I can't get the palms to the floor. And then we got a friend of ours who can get her elbows to the floor.
Oh my God.
Yeah, which is just crazy. And then like, and my wife, she's like, I don't know, like, oh, I don't want to insult her. Honey, Kayla, how tall are you? 5'2". She's 5'2". Okay, so she's 5'2". So she can get her hands to the floor. I'm 6 feet tall, so that's how I justify it. It's like I got
Oh,
another 10. I got another 10 inches to get to the floor.
that's right.
But anyway, I gotta go, Lee. She's
Yeah.
giving me the eyes right now. We're gonna go for a run.
Awesome. Well, you enjoy that run. Implement some of those strategies we talked about today.
We'll
All right?
do.
Build that zone 2 base for your longer. Build the base so that you can then build the intensity in later on.
Absolutely. Yep. Appreciate all the info.
Yeah, it was great chatting with you. And again, look forward to talking with you again next week for another podcast.
All right. Sounds good, Lee. Take care.
Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Podcast. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the podcast, and if you know someone who could benefit from today's episode, please feel free to share it with them. I mean, if you could help us to spread the word, that's going to help to get this message out there and allow us to create more content like this and reach more people and just create that positive impact all around. And if you would like some help with your own fitness goals, maybe it's building muscle, losing fat, improving your health, getting in your best shape, if you would like some help with that, then feel free to reach out to me. I have my contact information down in the show notes below, and you can book in for a free one-on-one strategy session coaching call with me, and we can discuss a realistic action plan that's right for you. And if I feel that you're a good fit, I may invite you to come on board and join our VIP coaching program. And if it's not a good fit and I feel that I'm not the right person to help you, then I'm not going to give you hype or BS, but I will point you in the right direction to somebody who can help you. I mean, I've got a large network of people in the fitness industry, so if I don't feel that you're a good fit for our coaching program or that I can help you, I'll be able to point you in the right direction to somebody who can. So either way, at the end of your free strategy session coaching call, you'll walk away with better insights on what you need to do next in order to reach your health and fitness goals. So that clues it up for today's episode, and we'll be back again next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time with another episode of the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Podcast. Take care. Over and out.